Morning, everyone. Hope you are well. Hope you had a wonderful Shabbos. This morning's learning is dedicated in memory of Benjamin Akiva ben Shlomo, Leah bas Bible, Rabbi Yaakov Tzvi ben David Aryeh, Tzivia bas Mordechai, Avram ben David Slavin, Sipora Fegel bas Ruben Baruch, Shalom ben Eleli, ben bas Bible from Shoshana bas Yaakov Shmuel, Caleb Bela bas Henoch, Yirmiyahu Yechia ben Moshe Eliezer, Shara Malka bas Binyamin, Shlomo Yechia ben Yeshua Levi, Avram Mordechai ben Moshe Katna, as well as the yacht sites for today. And they are Miro Chayat Bas Leighton, Tzvi Hirsch ben Menachem Alevi Reese, Chaim ben Label Lyons, Golda Bas Binyamin Goldring, and Moshe ben Zalman Gimple. Wish each and every one of them long life and only simchas. So we are now up to the second chapter of Ethics of the Fathers. And the chapter says as follows. It starts, all chapters begin in the same way. Kol Yisrael yesh lehem chelek le'olam haba. All of Israel has a place in the world to come, right? By dint of the fact that we are part of the Jewish people as a whole, as an entity, are promised a place in the world to come. As we said previously, what is that place will depend on us. Rebbe Omer, the Mishna says as follows. So Rebbe, so who is Rebbe? So Rebbe is Rebbe Yehuda Hanassi. Rebbe Yehuda Hanassi, known as Rebbe Yehuda the Prince, was the redactor of the Mishnah, and he was, out of reverence, referred to as Rebbe, the teacher par excellence. He was the one who, he was exceptionally wealthy, influential, on good terms with the Romans, and in fact he was the one who committed the Mishnah to writing, ensuring that it would survive. So he said as follows: Ezehi derech yeshara sheyavo lo ha'adam. What is the correct path that we should choose, right? The correct path, the straight path, the just path for each and every one of us. Kol shehi tiferes lo oseha v'siferes lo min ha'adam. He says, whatever is going to be a credit to himself and earns him the esteem of his fellow man. So we'll come back to that, because we would have thought that it's all about our interactions and what God thinks of us rather than what human beings and our fellow man thinks of us. We'll come back to that. And you should be as careful about what seems like a rather insignificant or small mitzvah as a more stringent, more important mitzvah. Why? Mitzvahs. We don't know the reward and the significance of mitzvot. We can hazard a guess, but we don't actually know because it's not written. Hefsed mitzvah keneged schara. And we should weigh up and consider the loss, right, of if we don't do a mitzvah versus its reward. Okay, now that's difficult because we just said we don't know the reward. We'll come to that as well. And similarly, when it comes to an avera, we should also weigh up, if we do a sin, if we do the wrong thing, what are we gaining? What is the short-term gain for the long-term loss? Okay, that's the next point. Histakel b'shlosha devarim, the Mishnah concludes, look at three things and you will not come, ve'enat bali de'avera, you're not going to come to stumble and to sin. What are those three things? Da mala mala mimcha, know what is above you. Ayin roya, ve'oizen shamas, an eye that sees, an ear that hears, v'chol ma'sefer b'sefer nichtavim, and all your deeds are recorded in a book. So that in essence is saying, remember that God is, as it were, above you. Okay? So let's try and understand that whole Mishnah, okay, in the time that we have. I haven't said hello to everyone. I trust you all had a lovely Shabbos, a bit of a cold one, but nonetheless, we hope everyone is well. To Richard, to Peter, to Rachel, to Carol, to Caroline, and to Harry, good morning, Shavua Tov, good vach, and welcome. Okay, so the Mishnah, now let's explain it. The Mishnah goes like this, okay? So our job is primarily to do the will of God, to be good in God's eyes, right? We don't go around making a PR campaign, although some do on Facebook, but generally speaking, we're not that interested in, in winning the popularity competition in terms of other people, okay? But yet this Mishnah says that our actions, our deeds should bring splendor and credit to ourselves, even in the eyes of our fellow man. And we find, as Chief Rabbi Mervis very often quotes, that it says, "V'nim sachein," that our job is to find favor, beinei Elokim, in the eyes of God, uveinei Adam, and in the eyes of man, in that order. So the idea is that first and foremost, we are expected to live lives that are upstanding, that are moral, that are holy and sanctify, as we wrote about this week in our weekly insights, every second and every situation that we find ourselves in. The mundane can become the sublime if we're willing to infuse it with sanctity, if we do it for the sake of heaven. That's point number one. But one cannot live and lock oneself off in an ivory tower, right? Live, be an island to oneself, ignore the world outside and say, I'm just going to be a monk. I'm going to live a life of purely dedicated to God, and I'm not going to interact with my fellow human being. That is not what God wants from us. Quite the opposite. What he expects from us is that we live lives that are upstanding and that are curry favor also with our fellow human beings, right? So therefore, it's not enough just to, when we behave, it is not just between us and God, but we know that so many of the mitzvot, 50% of the 10 commandments, are between us and our fellow human being, right? So many of the mitzvot, have a look at this week's Torah portion, Mishpatim, are about our interpersonal relations, how considerate and sensitive we are to our fellow human beings. And that really is a reflection of the way we are with God. The two are inextricably linked. And therefore, we are expected to bring splendor to God, the way we behave, but also people should look around us and see that how great we are. And if you look at some of the great sages and you read up on their lives, you'll notice from Shimon HaTzadik, where Alexander the Great bowed down to him, right? All the way through to Moshe Feinstein and other great sages that have been admired and respected tremendously by the secular world. We only have to look at Rabbi Lord Sachs, Zichrono Livracha, right, who was described by Prince Charles as a light unto the nations. Okay, so through his personal conduct, through the way that Rabbi Sachs behaved, his deeds, his thoughts, right, he was able to bring light to the world at large. So that is not just in God's eyes, but in mankind's eyes. We'll carry on. So the idea if God were to tell us the exact reward for mitzvot, if you knew that this one gets you 100 points and this one gets you 50 points and this one gets you 20 points, then it would mean that inevitably we would pick and choose where we put our emphasis, where we focus our attention, right? But that's not what a loyal servant does. A loyal servant is somebody who focuses their attention on every single thing that their master commands them, because there is no distinction. I am following the will of God. If God tells me to do something, I have to do it, regardless of what the reward would be or the importance, big or small. It's the same command coming from the same master. So it is with God. So therefore, I think subconsciously, there are people that do pick and choose. Yom Kippur is a big day. Oh, Yom Kippur, I'm going to fast, I'm going to walk, and people walk miles on Yom Kippur. And what about, kashrut? What about, all the other laws that we have? Not speaking lashon hara, right? Loving your neighbor as yourself, right? Tzitzit, tefillin, mezuzah. The list goes on and on and on and on and on. 613 mitzvot. What about them? That's not so important, right? Says who? That's the point. Same thing with an avera, with a transgression. We think that we can second guess God, or we can work out, well, that is a serious one, therefore I'm not going to do it. We make our own rule book. That's not what God asks of us. We are his loyal subjects. Avinu Malkeinu, our father, our king. And a loyal subject has to follow a prince, has to listen to the king if he's a good prince, as we've seen recently, and has to be prepared to listen to the king or queen, no matter what they think themselves. The final part is that we are meant to know what is above us. What is above us, right? And this is the reason why men who need outward signs, why that we wear a couple. So we should know there is something above us. We should know that there is an eye that sees, an ear that hears, and everything that we do is committed to writing. Or the phrase that I used recently, a cosmic camera, right? In modern parlance. In other words, everything that we say and do, right, big or small, is being observed and will have to justify and rationalize, and we will be rewarded as a result. So it's interesting that what that means, and I see that as an exhilarating thought, because most of the stuff that we do in life is not seen by anybody. Think about it. Lockdown. Has anybody seen what you do? A few actions maybe, but the majority of our lives is in private. It's behind closed doors. And the point that is being made in this Mishna by Rabbi Yehuda Nasi is, it is just important, and it will be valued and appreciated just as much by God. That gives me tremendous strength. Everything we do counts. So we have to make it count. And with that, we'll stop there, okay? We'll now recite Psalm 23. I hope everyone is well. So, just in case you didn't see the email that went out, we will be online for Purim this year because the shul is closed, and there will be Zoom. We'll be on Zoom for the Megillah, ample opportunity to do it, and you can do all the mitzvot, the other things of giving the gifts to the poor and everything else online. Links have been sent out. Look at your emails from last week. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He causes me to lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside still waters. He restores my soul. He leads me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Even as I walk in the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You set a table before me in the presence of my adversaries. You anointed my head with oil, my cup overflows. May only goodness and kindness pursue me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord for the length of days. Memorial prayer. Adon olamim zocho es nishmois ben Yomin Akiva ben Shlomo, Leah bas 5 Harav Yaakov Tzvi ben David Aryeh, Sivia bas Mordechai, Avram ben David Slavin, Tzipora Fegele bas Reuven Baruch, Shalom ben Eleni ben bas 5 for Moshe Chandra bas Yaakov Shmuel, Kela Bela bas Henoch, Yirmiyahu ben Moshe Eliezer, Saramaka bas ben Yomin, Shlomo ben Yoshua Levi, Avram Mordechai ben Moshe, Miro Chaya bas Leighton, Svi Hirsch ben Menachem Alevi Rees, Chaim ben Label Lyons, Golda bas ben Yomin Goldring, Moshe ben Zalman Gimpo, Shalchu li olamam began Eden Temenu Chasam Lachin Balarachamim, Yaturein Beseisa Kanafaf li olamim, V'yasov Zachais Nishmas Amadin Einach Lasam, V'yanuchu B'shlamish Gavam, V'nomar Amen. Long life to everyone. Refuah Shlema. Lastly, Mishe Berach Aveseinu Avam Yisrael Yaakov Moshe Aaron David Shlomo Yivarach Rabbe Zacholim, Bavu Shanu Mitzpalim Bavu Ram, B'Chazar Kadosh Baruch Hu Yimalei Rachim Aleihem Lachem Alefasam, Vishlach lehem Fushlim Shmaim Lachalevim Besoch Shachal Yisrael, Refuah Sanefesh Refuah Sagov, Hashtag Revan Omar. Amen. Wish everyone well. Keep safe, keep well. Look forward to having a very important interview. We are honored. Please come on Facebook and YouTube. It's on Facebook and YouTube tomorrow night, 8 p.m. for JJ Sussman, an incredible contemporary of my own. We actually knew each other in yeshiva. We're friends in yeshiva, but he has gone on to really great things, and he'll be interviewed from Israel about his work in bringing the different segments of the community together. It's extraordinary what he has done, and we're honored that he's going to take some time out from his hectic schedule to spend with us and to hear about the Jewish impact that he has had. That's tomorrow night, Jewish Impact, 8 p.m. on our Facebook and YouTube pages. Keep safe, keep well. Have a great